You hear music, drums, voices, laughter echoing through the streets. New Orleans, 1800, a city alive with culture, alive with movement, alive with sound. But beneath the music, there is something else, something less visible, danger. Because in this city, beauty and risk exist side by side. One moment, you are walking through a crowded market filled with spices and color. The next, you are standing in a street where violence, disease, or disaster can appear without warning. This is not a safe city. It is not a predictable city. It is a place where anything can happen. And in 1800, New Orleans is one of the most unpredictable cities in North America. At the turn of the 19th century, New Orleans does not feel like a typical American city. It feels like a crossroads of empires. For decades, control of the city has shifted between France and Spain, and in 1800, it still carries the strong influence of both. Architecture reflects European styles. Government systems follow old colonial traditions, and the people themselves come from many different parts of the world. Walk through the streets, and you hear multiple languages at once. French spoken in markets and homes, Spanish used in administration and trade, African languages and rhythms carried by enslaved and free black communities. This mixture creates something unique, a city where cultures blend, collide, and reshape each other every day. At the center of it all flows the Mississippi River, a massive artery of trade connecting the interior of the continent to the Gulf of Mexico. Ships arrive loaded with goods from distant regions, cotton, sugar, tobacco, spices. But they also bring people, sailors, merchants, migrants, and travelers, and with them come ideas, beliefs, and influences that constantly reshape the city. New Orleans becomes a place where no single identity dominates. Instead, it exists between worlds, between continents, between cultures, between order and chaos. And that constant mix is exactly what makes the city both vibrant and unpredictable. The port of New Orleans is the beating heart of the city and one of its most dangerous places. From early morning until late at night, the riverfront never rests. Ships crowd the banks of the Mississippi River, their decks stacked with cargo from across the world. Barrels of rum, bales of cotton, sacks of sugar and coffee. Crates are unloaded in a constant rhythm, carried by exhausted dock workers moving through heat and humidity. The air is thick with noise, shouting merchants, arguing sailors, creaking wood, and crashing cargo. Deals happen quickly here, sometimes honestly, often not. Smugglers blend into the crowds, moving goods that never appear in official records. Stolen cargo changes hands in back alleys. Arguments can turn into fights within seconds. Knives are drawn. Money disappears, and justice rarely arrives in time, because in a port this busy, control is almost impossible. Too many ships, too many people, too many secrets. Fortunes can be made here overnight, but just as quickly, they can vanish. Step away from the river and deeper into the streets of New Orleans, and the atmosphere becomes even more intense. The roads are narrow and often uneven, crowded with carts, animals, and people moving in every direction. Buildings stand close together with wooden shutters and iron balconies hanging overhead, casting shifting shadows across the street below. Markets spill out into the roads. Vendors shout over each other, selling fresh fish, meat, spices, and fruit brought in from nearby plantations and distant ports. The air is thick, a mix of heat, humidity, smoke, and the sharp scent of food and waste. Music drifts through the streets, blending with voices in different languages. French, Spanish, and African dialects mix together, creating a constant hum of sound. But beneath the energy, there is tension. Not every street feels safe. Pickpockets move through the crowds unnoticed. Arguments can turn into fights within seconds. Strangers are watched carefully, and as the sun begins to set, the atmosphere changes again. Shadows grow longer. Some areas become quieter, others become more dangerous. Because in New Orleans, the streets are alive, but they are never fully under control. Despite the danger, New Orleans in 1800 is one of the most culturally vibrant places in North America. Music is everywhere, not in concert halls, but in the streets, courtyards, and open squares. Drums echo in the distance, voices rise in rhythm. String instruments blend with unfamiliar beats brought from across the Atlantic. Different traditions meet here and create something entirely new. French melodies mix with African rhythms. Spanish influences shape architecture, language, and daily customs. Public gatherings become spaces where cultures blend, even when society itself remains divided. Food tells the same story. Markets are filled with spices, seafood, rice, and meats prepared in ways that reflect many worlds at once. Cooking is not just survival. It is identity. It is memory. It is adaptation. Festivals bring moments of energy to the city. People gather, dance, and celebrate, even while uncertainty surrounds them. Because in a place where life can be unpredictable, culture becomes something essential. It gives structure to chaos, meaning to hardship, and connection between people who arrived from very different places but now share the same streets. One of the greatest dangers in New Orleans is not violence, it is disease. The city's location near wetlands, swamps, and slow-moving water creates the perfect environment for illness to spread. Heat and humidity hang in the air almost constantly, especially during the summer months, turning the city into a breeding ground for insects. Mosquitoes multiply rapidly. Stagnant water collects in ditches, barrels, and flooded streets. And in 1800, people do not yet fully understand how diseases spread. Among the most feared illnesses is yellow fever. When it arrives, it spreads quickly and unpredictably. At first, the symptoms seem mild: fever, headaches, weakness. But within days, the condition can become far more severe. Victims grow weaker. Skin turns pale or yellow. Some fall into delirium. Many do not survive. Entire households can be affected within a short time. Doctors struggle to treat patients with limited knowledge and primitive tools. Quarantines are attempted, but often too late. Fear spreads faster than the disease itself. Shops close, streets empty. Those who can afford to leave the city often flee to safer areas. But the poorest residents have no choice but to remain. And even after outbreaks fade, the danger never fully disappears. Because in a city like New Orleans, the conditions that allow disease to spread are always present, waiting. New Orleans faces more than disease and crime. The environment itself is a constant threat. The city is built on low, unstable ground near wetlands, where water is always close to the surface. After heavy rain, streets can quickly turn into shallow rivers. Mud replaces solid ground. Movement slows. Daily life becomes harder. And then there are the storms. Powerful tropical systems form over warm ocean waters and move toward the coast with little warning. Winds rise rapidly. Rain falls in relentless sheets. Roofs are torn away. weak structures collapse. Boats break loose along the riverbanks. At night, the storms feel even more dangerous. The wind howls through narrow streets. Loose shutters slam against walls. People stay inside, listening, waiting, hoping their homes will hold. But storms are only part of the danger. Fire is just as deadly. Most buildings are made from wood, packed tightly together with little space between them. Open flames are used daily for cooking, lighting, and work. One accident, a dropped candle, a kitchen spark, can start a fire that spreads from house to house within minutes. And when strong winds combine with fire, the results can be catastrophic. Flames move faster. Embers travel through the air. Entire blocks can burn before anyone has time to react. In a city like New Orleans in 1800, disaster is never a rare event. It is always one moment away. Maintaining order in New Orleans around 1800 is far more complicated than in most American cities. The population is diverse, the streets are crowded, and authority is often stretched thin. Different cultures, languages, and customs collide in the same neighborhoods, making it difficult to enforce a single system of rules. Official law enforcement exists, but it is limited in both size and reach. Patrols move through the main streets, but many areas remain loosely controlled. At night, entire districts can feel unpredictable. Some crimes are reported, many are not, because people understand that justice is not always guaranteed. In certain parts of the city, influence matters more than law. Wealthy merchants, local leaders, and powerful individuals can shape outcomes behind the scenes. Disputes are sometimes settled privately, rather than through official channels. Taverns and port districts are especially volatile. Arguments can escalate quickly into violence. Sailors, traders, and laborers from different parts of the world bring not only goods, but also tensions. And when conflicts happen, they can spread fast. Residents learn to navigate this environment carefully. They memorize safe routes. They avoid certain streets after dark. They recognize faces, who to trust, who to fear. Because in New Orleans, survival is not only about avoiding disease or disaster. It is about understanding the unwritten rules of the city. Rules that change depending on where you stand and who is watching. By the year 1800, New Orleans feels like a city balanced on a thin line between opportunity and collapse. On one side, it is thriving. Ships arrive daily along the Mississippi River, bringing goods, wealth, and new arrivals from across the Atlantic world. Markets remain busy. Trade continues to expand, and the city's unique culture grows stronger with every passing year. But on the other side, instability is everywhere. The population is growing faster than the city can safely support. Infrastructure struggles to keep up. Streets flood easily. Sanitation remains limited. Disease is always a possibility waiting just beneath the surface. Tension exists between different communities, languages, and social classes. Law enforcement is inconsistent, and the environment itself is unpredictable. Storms can arrive suddenly, fires can spread quickly, and rising water can threaten entire neighborhoods. For many residents, life in New Orleans becomes a constant calculation of risk. Every decision matters: where to walk, who to trust, when to stay indoors, when to leave. Because in this city, the difference between safety and danger can change in a single moment. And yet, despite everything, people stay. Because New Orleans offers something few places can: a chance, even if that chance comes with uncertainty. New Orleans in 1800 is not a simple city. It is not purely dangerous, and it is not purely beautiful. It is both. A place where music and risk exist together, where culture grows in the middle of uncertainty, where opportunity comes with a price. For the people who live here, survival requires awareness, adaptability, and resilience. Because in this city, nothing is guaranteed. What you've just seen is a reconstruction of New Orleans around the year 1800, capturing the atmosphere of a city shaped by culture, trade, and constant danger. The streets, markets, and environment were recreated using AI reconstruction technology to visualize how this unpredictable city may have looked during its early history.